Well, thanks for being on the podcast, man. It's been a long time since we've actually done this. I think the last time we did it, we were still doing podcasts in my house.
Really? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
I think we were jamming like three people into
That
my
was a long time
into
ago.
my office, around a little 3x4 desk.
Yeah, that was
Um
fun.
so a
With your
lot
massage table in there.
yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, a lot of stuff's changed. I mean, I feel like that was probably 4 or 5 years ago because I think maybe it was Christy.
It might have been longer.
Yeah. But it's been a while since we've done the podcast together, and a lot of things changed. I mean, even the side of the gym that we're sitting in right now wasn't even here
I know.
back then. So the fact that we even have a room to podcast in is, to me, it's unbelievable. Just the fact that we even have an office.
I know. It's like,
But yeah, I was really looking forward to this podcast just because, we spend every waking day together
yes.
and most hours of our day together as well. And then even when we're not together, we're most likely on the phone, texting, or some kind of emails about this place.
Yeah.
Or, on the back end, I'll be like talking to Kelsey, who helps you and your brother run Ritual.
Yeah.
And I was like looking through my phone today when I was trying to call you to see if you needed coffee. And I kept getting confused because I kept seeing Kelsey Blankenberger and then Chris Blankenberger in my call list when I was trying to look for your name.
That's funny.
But it just made me realize, like, we didn't really set out to do it, but it's become even more family oriented over the
Yes,
years.
it is. Yeah.
When in the very beginning, it was not like that at all. Like, obviously you and I were tight,
Yeah.
but it was more like, I'm running the place, you came with, then you started doing stuff on the side, started co-running it in the background.
Yeah.
But like over time now, it's like Katie's involved. Katie's my wife.
I know. I kind of like how it's.
Your whole family's involved.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. And one of the biggest things I want to talk to you about is Ritual, because you've been involved with Ritual for a very long time.
Yeah.
And
11 years now.
there's 11,
No, wait, not 11.
probably 9 or 10, 9.
2017. So
Oh,
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
And there's been some huge transitions with that brand
Yeah.
since day one. And I think, if I remember right, you were the first sponsored athlete.
I
for
was.
Ritual, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of interesting that over time, you were the first sponsored athlete. You stuck with them. You always, in my opinion, you always promoted the brand as if it was your own brand from the
Yes.
beginning. Why is that?
Because I think because I just liked it,
Mhm.
and I knew I was like one of the first people there, so I think I was just like, oh, this is how you do. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
I just knew to do that. I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, I liked the clothes.
Mhm.
It just was like, I guess it was something that was like really. The message was like a lot for me. The
Mhm.
strength built through ritual, and with my lifting and stuff, everything's been very ritualistic.
Truth.
And it's helped me like mentally with a lot of things. And my sanity is like based on it
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
So like, and I'm sure you can attest to that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think like the message behind it all kind of led me to
Yeah.
support it. And I loved working with like the athletes at the time.
Yeah.
The original athletes,
Yeah.
like we were all close and tight. And now we even have some of those original athletes back on board with us.
Yeah.
I was good friends with Tim, the former owner,
What's Tim's last name?
Williams.
Williams.
Yes. And he and his wife ran the company for a while, they ran up to a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
And then he sold me the company. He sold the company to me and my brother.
Mhm.
In January of 2024.
Yeah, Matt's brother's name is Chris Blankenberger.
Christopher, yeah.
And Christopher, sorry.
Yeah.
And he's always done stuff for Rockwell too. I mean, the guy's,
Yeah.
been here middle of the night doing electrical work.
Yeah.
He generally would always work out here at like 2 or 3 in the morning after his shift at ComEd.
Yeah.
You know?
He'd be the only one in the night. Sometimes we would come in the morning and he'd be here like running around with like cowboy boots on, lifting. And we're like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm just doing bench press.
And then I would scare the shit out of him because I think sometimes he would forget that I would work at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
Because there was a period of time where I didn't start at 5. Now
Yeah.
I do. But he was in here for a while where he wouldn't see anyone. He'd come in and lift and he'd leave and there'd be no humans in here for that entire time.
Yeah.
And then I'd come in the back door. He had the music up loud. He'd be like, "Oh shit!"
That's funny.
Like almost dropped
That's
his drink.
Chris,
Or,
yeah.
But no, it's really cool he's involved, and, the one point that you brought up earlier about sort of, like, your sanity, I never
Yes.
really put that together as far as, like, what the brand was about, and then, you as a person and, like, kind of like you're sort of filling a void to a degree,
Yes.
and it's not like you're filling the void with that brand, like, "Oh, okay, I have this clothing brand now, and all of a sudden, like, my life's great," but the thing is that you know that there's missing parts of your life, just like every human being, like, I know that there's certain parts of my life that aren't perfect, and
Yeah.
I try to fill those gaps with things that are important to me that, get my attention on it, and then
Yeah.
stop focusing on all this weird shit that doesn't help me.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really cool when you brought up that point about, oh yeah, like there's a message and there's a value behind it and what they stood for, or like the look of the brand, and
Yeah.
that kind of like it makes sense that you put everything into it because it just seems like you sort of made it a part of you.
Yeah. And the other part of it is like, the brand was DIY and it was very punk rock and, like hardcore stuff. And that's always been like the kind of music and,
True.
you as well, you were a singer in a hardcore band.
Yeah.
And we just grew up that way and we've kind of owned it into Rockwell. And I think
Yep.
it's really molded a really good like foundation,
Yeah.
friendships,
Yeah.
a foundation, our family environment that we're like, that
Yeah.
you mentioned, we're moving like things together as a family.
For sure.
And I think people feel really safe when they like see all of that.
True.
And I think that when, they're like, oh, I'm different because I like this genre of music and
Mhm.
they find Rockwell, they're just like, oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's strange to think about, but when it comes down to this gym and then like the music that's involved in it,
Yeah.
and then ritual, whether you guys or whether Tim or whether you guys now set out to actually do it or not, there is this really weird crossover between sort of alternative weird music, like however you
Hmm.
want to label it, and ritual. And then again, like I mentioned, like the gym here,
Yeah.
and like you're not Ritual's not a band,
No.
and either is Rockwell, but they're
I mean,
just
neither
so
is
closely.
powerlifting.
That's true.
So
That's a
it's
really
all,
good
it's
point.
like very extreme on all levels.
But powerlifting, in my opinion, especially now, does have a lot to do with that kind of music.
It does.
But
Yes.
if you think about it, we're not necessarily going. We still go to shows, but a lot of times when we're listening to that music, we're not necessarily going to a show.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily listening to music in our car on the way to a show.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like hardcore or like, metal or, whatever you want to call it, is like assimilated into this culture now.
Yeah, it is.
And they're sort of one and the same, even though they're not. Like, in my opinion, you can't just power lift and then say you're a hardcore dude,
Right.
obviously.
Yeah.
But it really draws people into hardcore.
Yes, it
And
does.
a lot of hardcore people do sort of fit into this
Well, I think
situation
I
easily
think
too.
also like hardcore people are drawn into powerlifting.
Yeah.
So it's like a give and take on both ends.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to see the older I get because it's like, it seems like all of the aspects of my life have like kind of folded and mended together,
Hmm.
which I love
Hmm.
because it makes my life much happier and fulfilled.
Yeah.
Like, my family being involved with me,
Hmm.
like you're like my brother, like we've worked together so long and we,
For sure.
like you said, we spend days together, just like the most time together. And
Yeah.
like, it just gives me a sense of like home
Yep.
and a sense of like feeling safe. And that's like one of the biggest things for me. Like I'm
Good.
realizing now in my 40s is that like, you know, I want these things forever.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, when I was starting powerlifting, I made it my identity. And that's like, I put everything into it. I was
Yeah.
very strong. I was doing whatever it takes to chase those numbers. And then,
Mm.
the last meet I did last year in January, I kind of changed my whole outlook on lifting.
Yeah.
And I kind of like had an ego death where I was like,
Okay.
I have to let go of like
I like the way you put that.
the number chasing
Yeah.
and I have to like enjoy this for what it is.
True.
So what I did is, I went and I did a meet and I was like 7 for 9 and I didn't PR on anything, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I felt great because I didn't put the pressure on myself of
Yeah.
like having to chase numbers, which, in turn would get me injured.
Yeah.
And now I'm to the point in my like lifting career and my life
Yeah.
where I want to like enjoy life and not be hurt all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, I'm
yeah.
okay if I'm sore. Like we have an ongoing joke about me being sore, which
With
Lawrence could talk to you about.
yeah, with Pat and TJ, just over the years working together and I don't know, hanging out and lifting the gym together, there's just been various times, and by various I mean like 100, where and you might not actually be doing something, or I might actually be training a client and doing something important, and Matt will just come up and be like, "God, I'm fucking so sore," in my ear. and and then it kind of evolved to him saying the same thing to TJ and Pat, and then we started basically pointing it out that he was doing it. And so now, like if he does it, we'll start a group text about it.
Yes.
Or like this morning, I actually had Matt just group text the guys and tell him that he was sore because he said it to me when I saw him when he first walked into the
At
office today.
7:30 a.m. on a Saturday.
But yeah, to your point about getting injured and trying to do this for a long time and everything. I mean, that I can attest to. Um,
yeah, let's talk about your shoulder a little bit.
well, yeah. So about I think it was early March. I had been having some issues with my shoulder since December. I started on a bench in December. Just felt like I was getting like a random pump like in my front deltoid and pec when I was benching. But that stuff happens all the time. Like
Yeah.
day to day when you bench, you're like, oh, that's crazy. That thing doesn't usually work like that. And then you just move on and go the next day of training and it's fine. Or, you'll do PT on it or something. So that's how it originally started. But then over the next couple of months, it quickly progressed to me just unloading all the weight off all my pressing exercises completely. Then it started bothering squats and deadlifts. And I was like, all right, this seems like a much bigger thing than just like an ache, or a soreness, in
Mhm.
training. So then I started kind of adjusting how I was doing jujitsu, and I wouldn't live roll as much, or I would skip a class here and there in the week. And that's not like me at all.
Right.
But that's what I had to do. And then one day I was just in jiu-jitsu for a gi class, and one of my training partners basically pulled on my arm to do a warm-up, which was part of the warm-up. He wasn't doing anything egregious. It was just, that was the warm-up. And it was actually really chill. And when he pulled on it, it just completely dislocated out of the socket, subluxed my shoulder, probably like 50 to 60%. I don't know. It was a huge subluxation.
Yikes.
Katie actually had to help me get it back in the office,
Ooh.
which was an interesting experience.
Was it painful putting it back in?
I actually felt good getting it back in because it was so out. But yeah, so that kind of led me to, going to an ortho, x-ray, MRIs, all that, and PT. And then, I got pretty aggressive
Yeah.
about how I was going to try to recover from this because it brought me down to, 0.
Well, yeah, like, or the thought of they'll do anything for it to get better.
Yeah. So, I basically now I'm seeing 2 different PTs. One is Becca,
Yeah.
through Iron Mind, and another one's through Northwestern. And then I actually flew down to Austin, Texas. I know you know that.
Yeah.
And I got stem cell therapy at Ways to Well.
Yeah, like, tell me about that. Like, have you noticed a change since you got it, or?
Yeah, I noticed there was an initial change, and then it's been a slow progression of, getting more positive.
That was what, 2.5 weeks ago, 3
Yeah,
weeks
I think
ago?
it was about 3. Yeah, 3, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I got stem cell IV. I injured the right side, but I got stem cell IV on the left side because they said that the IV is more considered full body therapy.
Got it.
And I was like, well, let's go on the opposite side because I have issues everywhere from powerlifting for a long time and then jujitsu.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's try to hit a couple things at the same
Maximize
time.
what we can do here.
Get the full money's worth.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I got one shot in my supraspinatus,
Okay.
and it actually wasn't that uncomfortable. But what was really interesting about it is that the lady was extremely skilled. So she had the ultrasound on my back, and she was looking at the screen, and she was following the ultrasound with the needle, not really looking at the needle, just
Okay.
following it. And then as she found the right muscle, she put the needle in while she's looking at the screen.
Oh, interesting.
So it just shows you like how skilled she is and how long she's been doing that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And Katie had a video of it. I didn't know that that's how she was doing it until I looked at the video later.
That's cool because she's like, not just guesstimating on your skin.
Yeah, so she's picking like the exact fiber that she wanted to put it
That's
in,
smart.
or like the part of the muscle belly rather than just like supraspinatus.
Yeah, so you said it's made a difference. Explain how it's made a difference.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
tell
real
me.
quick, the other shot I got, the
Oh,
third
sorry.
part was she put basically right in my shoulder joint, and she put it in the passing between. There's a gap between your shoulder blade and then the humerus.
Got it.
And she put it right in the middle of those two. And I thought that that was going to be extremely painful, but it actually wasn't the shot. It was the injection of the stem cells in the joint because it kind of crowds the joint.
Yeah, and it feels pressure,
It
right?
feels pressure, like feels like it's going to explode for about
Yeah.
a minute and a half, you know, and you kind of want to like jump out of the chair and start running around, but you just have to sit there and chill just so you don't like,
Yeah.
you know, ruin it or,
So I have an experience with that. Not to
yeah,
cut you
sure.
off,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I have no cartilage in my knees. So
Hmm.
once a year I'll go to the ortho and he'll inject this like fluid that's like cartilage mimicking
Hmm.
into my knees.
Mm.
And the
It's like a
feeling
gel.
is a gel.
Gotcha.
But the feeling feels like that. It's very pressure and you feel like
Yeah.
your joint's gonna explode.
Yeah.
And then he's like, it will go away after time and like after
Yeah.
a day. But the whole day I was like, whoa, it almost feels like it's gonna like
Yeah.
pop.
I feel like I'm pretty calm under pain and I'm not very anxiety ridden, but that is an anxiety ridden
It's just a
experience for
very
sure.
weird sensation.
So the initial thing they said was that I was going to be very excited afterwards. They're like, you're going to just have a burst of energy and you're going to be freaking out for like 5 hours because the
Okay.
stem cells just, you know, you have more cells in your body and they're also fresh, healthy cells because
Yeah.
it's actually from an umbilical cord.
Yeah. So you're like biohuman almost.
Yeah, which is
So
kind
you're
of
like,
kind of sick.
yeah.
I'm like, I'm a baby now.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, but I didn't have any of that. I'm pretty even keel, I think, for the most part, you know. But yeah, I didn't have any of that. But then what was really strange is in the next 24 to 40 hours, I started having a lot of twitching in my tricep muscle, from the shoulder to like the, you know, short head all the way down to like the long head eventually.
Yeah,
That was,
that's like a nervous system thing, isn't it?
yeah.
So the
And
stem
you know,
cells.
I'm obviously not a doctor, but we've been doing this stuff a long time. And my experience with a lot of shoulder injuries, doesn't matter what the shoulder injury is that if you can get a lot of activation out of your tricep or your lat,
Yeah.
obviously there's other parts too that need to be working, but a lot of times, in my opinion, that's sort of the beginning of recovery from shoulder injuries.
Okay.
I've even noticed that with my own clients where like if their shoulders hurting them for a while and we can't get anything to work, eventually we can get their tricep to work quite a bit. It sort of, I feel like, just puts the shoulder in a better position. The
Yeah.
shoulder is not being put under too much pressure and it's also not being underutilized.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So as soon as I noticed that, like the next 3 days, it felt incredible. But then over the next week and a half, it kind of leveled out a little bit. And I was like, oh shit, like I don't know if that was a great investment, right? Just initially, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. But then over the last several weeks, it's improved quite a bit. And it's been a little bit of ebb and flow,
Okay.
but it seems like it's been a good investment. And, you know, there's obviously a lot of arguments about it. Like, you know, the FDA want to prove it. So a lot of people say not to do it.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of sketchy companies out there, who just are trying to make a quick buck. But my experience with that company was very good. And a lot of other people that I look up to in jiu-jitsu, in the fighting world, in the lifting world, you know, go to them as well.
Oh, that's good.
So I feel like it was the best
You did your
choice.
research, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it was the
You're
best
very good at
choice.
doing stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Talk to me briefly about Pig Collective because from being around you every day and knowing all the people that you coach, you know, you have an online and also in-person coaching company.
Yes.
And I know that there's been some adjustments with it since you've been running Ritual,
Yeah.
which like everything that we do eventually changes over time. So you're still coaching
Yeah.
clients under Pig Collective.
Yeah.
But just talk to me about the status of Pig Collective right now, kind of what it is doing, what it's not doing, you
Okay.
know, just because it is a really big part of you. But I've noticed that since Ritual has started, it's been a little bit more on the underside
Yeah.
as far as you like promoting it and talking about it, but it's still very active,
And it's very much me. Yeah.
you know, and
It's
there's a lot of people doing meets,
Yeah.
still like under your coaching program,
Yeah.
even though it's
So
not in the forefront.
so when I started Pig Collective, it was just me, and then I brought TJ on,
Testosterone Jones.
I brought him on, and then he was with me for 2 years, and then he decided he was going to do his own thing,
Yep.
which is ignition powerlifting, which
Yep.
I was very proud of him for doing.
And he runs that with Becca, right?
He runs it with Becky, yeah. I wanted him to do that at some point because I wanted him to learn how to
Mhm.
do that.
Mhm.
And then after that, I brought Miles on, and now Miles is in the heart of his MD and PhD program. So he's not very active. So it's just me, and I'm coaching people still under or
Yeah.
over or under Pig Collective, whatever.
Yep.
But over the last year and a half, I've kind of like put on the back burner because I took over Ritual, and that was
Yeah.
like literally eating all of my free time because, I work a full-time job
Yep.
here as
Yep.
a trainer.
Yep.
I do stuff around the gym. I help you and Katie,
Yeah. You're vice
run. Yeah,
president
no, like
of the gym.
we all chip in and we all do something stuff like a family,
Mm-hmm.
which is like great.
Yep.
But Ritual was like I kind of grabbed the reins, not knowing how to run an apparel company.
Mm.
Pig Collective slightly. I would just, launch shirts here and there, but not a full-on apparel
Yeah.
company. So, Pig Collective status right now, we're gonna start going like I'm gonna start putting a little more energy into it. There's some things happening like with Inez.
Mm-hmm.
Inez Carrasquillo, she was one of my first athletes as a powerlifter. She is now the number one strong woman in the world. She's won the last 3 major competitions. She's come back to me and asked her to coach me
Mm-hmm.
or asked me to coach her,
Mm-hmm.
which is a high honor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to touch too much on it. We just started again. But I'm excited.
Yeah.
She's very knee deep in Pig Collective stuff. She wants to promote the brand. She always has. I think it's just going to naturally make another, like a resurgence.
Agreed.
So, that being said, I'm going to start doing a little more merch just to like promote the coaching brand in there.
Yeah.
My business has been getting busier and busier recently.
Mm-hmm.
I think yours is as well. The gym's doing great. Could I bleed into Ritual with this Pig Collective stuff? Yes. So going from Pig Collective into Ritual, I'm going to touch on that now because we talked about that in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a giant learning curve for me
Mm-hmm.
because literally we were handed nothing. So we had to figure out how to run a Shopify store, do an online website.
Yep.
We had to figure out how to make mock-ups. We had to figure out how to do the communicating with the printer,
Yep.
who is Jonathan at Exploding House, who all of us use.
Yeah,
another family thing.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because he's engaged to Caroline.
Yeah,
Caroline's been here since the beginning.
Yeah.
Even before that with me when we were at Europe.
Right.
So I mean, she's pre-Rockwell.
Yeah,
And Jonathan does all of our printing. Jonathan does printing for a lot of people in the gym and then friends of the gym. So it's networked out.
he does like breweries,
all this
and
shit sitting
bands.
behind us.
Yeah,
is Jonathan
does everything. He does Ritual now. Like he's great. And like actually tonight, me and Lawrence are going to Caroline's 10-year anniversary party because she has her own shop open for 10 years as of this week. So
yeah, I'm really proud of her, and it's been really cool to see what she's done over that time period too. I mean, she started a shop. I don't know how to put it exactly, but the tattoo world sometimes can be a little gatekeepy, or it can be a little judgmental, just like the gym, industry. And she just did what she wanted to do, and she started her own shop with the people she wanted in it. Very different than any other shop out there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And she rode out a lot of tough waves. Different things happen. Anytime you're in business for 10 years, there's going to be a lot of good times. There's going to be some bad times. And she really rode all that out super gracefully, and has just become like such a pillar of our gym. And most of the people's tattoos in this gym are Caroline's.
Yeah, I mean, my whole body is mostly Caroline, so it's like,
yeah.
And now, like, I love it because, like, she has more tattooers at her shop.
Yep.
One of them being Kara, who I train, and she's a great artist.
She's rad, yeah.
And like, she's been working on me now, so it's just like it's kind of nice to see all of this like family stuff, like from what you thought about.
Definitely. Tell me a little bit about you were talking about possibly blending some Ritual and Pig Collective stuff. The way that I took it, and you can tell me if this is wrong, but were you thinking about doing like certain little collections that are Pig Collective based?
No, what I meant is like running Pig Collective kind of bled into me running Ritual, and I kind of shifted what I'd known from Pig Collective into Ritual.
Yeah.
I thought about that in the beginning, blending them. I'm not going to blend them.
Yeah.
They're completely two different entities.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Sure.
So I'm not going to blend them.
Can I ask you a funny question?
Sure.
So can you, however you want to explain it, because I don't want to throw you under the bus too much, but can you explain sort of how the pig idea originally got brought up from the OG story, like the sort of the humor side of it, like
Well,
from
yeah.
we were
So,
way. I don't know if
I
it was
mean,
Gene or.
you could bring up the pig part, but like the real reasoning why Pig Collective is a name is because my old dog Tank, his nickname was Pig.
Oh, okay. I
And
thought it was only from the joke.
no, it was
Okay.
Tank because, and then when Tank died, I got the pig tattoo on my neck.
Ah.
And what happened and how we got Pig Collective is my friend Claire, you
Mhm.
know Claire.
Yeah, I know Claire.
She used to work out here with Christy and then me.
Yeah.
We're actually going to a wedding next week. We're going to Christy's wedding next weekend,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Um,
Congrats to
but
Christy.
yeah, exactly. So that should be fun. Claire literally was like, "Oh, you should name your coaching brand Pig Collective because you're a pig." And I was like, "Okay."
I didn't realize that was her. For some reason, I thought it was Allie.
It was definitely Claire.
But Allie is Allie the one that pushed you to do it or something like that? There's something
Yeah,
with Allie,
I
right?
mean, there was a whole slew of
Yeah,
things,
yeah, yeah.
and then
Okay.
like it has a double meaning. So it's like, I am a gay man. Like the OG crew used to make fun of me to call me a slappy pig as like a joke, and I just laugh at it, like because it's funny.
Well, I remember Gene used to say funny stuff to you, like he would sexually harass you, and say stuff about the pig term.
Yes, which isn't okay,
It's
like in a work environment, just to be fair.
for the
But
record, we weren't working.
yes,
We were
it was
lifting.
lifting. Yes, which is like
No one was on shift.
it's a very blurred line.
Oh
But
god, that's so ridiculous.
so yeah, it has a dual meaning. And then I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go with it.
Yeah.
And I went with it.
You've
And
always been really good about that. Like
what? Oh,
just jumping off that cliff, like even back to when you first started lifting with me, we've already covered it on the podcast before, but how you started originally lifting with me is that you and I were working in the same studio and I was already powerlifting. It was kind of like beginning or early powerlifting for me, definitely like beginner, maybe novice area.
yeah.
I was trying to figure it out. I was lifting heavy, but there wasn't a lot of direction necessarily. I was just like pulling from this, pulling from that. And you were kind of seeing that off to the side. And
I just saw the aggression and I loved it.
oh yeah. And so like I think I wanted you to do it because I didn't realize it at the time, but I think I knew the potential that you had, but that wasn't the actual reason that I asked you. I think I just asked you because I was sort of like, I want to see if he'll do this. Like
Yeah.
for whatever reason. It wasn't anything more than that.
Well, I mean, that's you jumping off a cliff too, being
That's
like,
true.
hey, let's see if you want to do that.
But you remember I would be like, hey, if I, get you a coffee, we can just
Yeah.
drink coffee and then we'll like lift. And that was how it started. It was very nonchalant. And then he just jumped off the cliff.
Well, it kind of like put a whole new light of lifting in my eyes, like the aggression power
Yeah,
part
yeah,
of it,
yeah.
which I really liked.
It makes lifting not boring,
Yes.
and I'm not saying that like regular strength training or bodybuilding can be boring.
I mean, powerlifting can be boring at times.
That's true. But yeah, if you allow it to be, it can be. And yeah, it's cool that you saw that. But yeah, and and then you kind of just took that on with coming here. You were like, yeah, there's like this little gym. I don't know what the hell is going on, but like I'll go with you and
Mhm.
fucking see what we can do,
Yeah.
And do the same thing with Pig Collective, same with Ritual. It's been great to see. And the other thing too, recently, I just sort of realized that when did you start training with Miles and Nick?
I
Was
think
that
about 2.5
9?
years
Oh,
ago.
it's 2.5 years ago. I was
2
gonna guess
years
9
ago?
months.
9 months, maybe you're right. I don't know. I
Yeah,
feel
well,
like
it's been a while.
How long has Nick been here?
At least a year and a half.
I think me and
Maybe longer,
Miles
2
started
years.
about 2 years ago doing it.
Yeah, you and Miles were doing it before Nick. That's
Yeah.
right. So
So let me touch on this real
Sure,
quick.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
going from powerlifting, when I said powerlifting is boring,
yeah.
I needed like a spark
hmm
because like I hired coaches, I've had coaches over time,
hmm
and it was hard for me to do it by myself. So
Mhm.
so what happened is Miles and I started lifting together
Mhm.
because he had the time to do it, and that was like really good for me.
And he
So-
was technically just your athlete at that time.
He was,
right?
yes.
Okay.
But then he, we started lifting together, and he's very smart, so I started giving him the ability to program our workouts.
Mhm.
Well, not giving him, well,
I
allowing
know what you
him to
mean.
do it.
Sure, sure, sure.
And he
Which
was,
is a very uncommon thing for a coach to start lifting with their lifter.
right.
It happens, but it's not that common. And then B, partially or fully give them the reins to program. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not common, and it takes a
No,
lot
it's
of
like
it
it's
takes
a lot of ego.
balls
It's
to
a
be
lot of
like, here
ego.
you go.
Yeah, and a lot of coaches have a lot of ego too. Where they don't.
Dude,
want
it's
to
such
give
a
up.
hard thing. I mean, I'll even admit that I struggle with that sometimes,
Yeah.
because you're the person in charge and you are responsible for the positives or negatives that come out of training.
Yeah.
but some of that involves a lot of ego, and then you have to learn how to like let that go to let things progress.
Yeah, and I think, like, with me and my coaching, I always aim to be a teacher,
Mhm.
not, like, a savior. Like, I don't wanna be the one who has to, like, completely be relied upon in order for them to be where they wanna be.
Yeah.
I wanna teach people how to get where they need to be
Yeah.
and use the tools that they know
Yeah. Yeah.
and give them the, like, courage to use those tools and their own, like,
Yeah.
their own knowledge, you know? So, anyway, back to, like,
Sure.
what we were talking about with the lifting.
Sure.
I gave the reins to Miles. He took over. Like, we would take turns riding our blocks, and it was really good for me as a
Hmm.
lifter because I had somebody to lift with.
Yeah.
I, it's very hard for me to be self-motivated at certain points in my life.
Hmm.
And into my 40s, it was just getting so hard. So this really worked well.
Yeah.
Then comes Nick. Nick comes on, right?
Yep.
So Nick is a trainer here at the gym. He started lifting with us. We kind of moved from linear progression to conjugate style
Hmm.
because it worked really well with all of us because
Hmm.
it was all like percentage and RPE based training.
Yep.
And my body recovers so much better from conjugate style.
Yeah.
I'm not hurt. I'm not injured.
Yep.
It's just more fun, and now what we do is we rotate 5-week blocks
Yeah.
on who's writing the program.
Hmm.
So it's like me 5 weeks, Miles 5 weeks, Nick 5 weeks. And then we just take turns and we all have input.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like all three of us are all coaching each other.
Hmm.
And I like it because it gives I think the boys look up to me and they're like, oh, it's nice that Matt gives me
Yeah.
trusts that
Yeah.
I can do this stuff. And,
Yep.
I challenge them too.
Yeah. It's funny because like when you're younger, the way you see sort of being like dominant or in charge
Yeah.
is not what it actually is. So as you get older, you start to realize that like, yeah, you're sort of looking things over, or you're overseeing
Yeah.
things, but a lot of being a leader is letting go and giving
Yeah.
people things and trusting people with things, and then also allowing yourself to learn from people
Yeah.
that have recently come on.
Yeah.
And that's a really beautiful thing.
It's great. I mean, and it's something that just came naturally for me, and I think a lot I'm sure it does for a lot of people,
Hmm.
but I think it's just like, I want to see the younger generation of like powerlifting
Hmm.
coaches like succeed,
Yeah.
especially the people that we work with here because I spend a lot of time with them.
Yeah.
And I love when like they have successes, small or big.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it because it's like, at one point in my life, I had those and like, it was great. It was a good feeling,
For sure,
at the
man. I mean,
time.
yeah, and to that point, it's like, uh, I feel like when you or I or people in sort of our age group
Yeah.
interjected themselves into powerlifting,
Yeah.
initially we just wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And then there was like a change where we wanted to affect it,
Yeah.
and then there was another change where I was like, okay, who was before us and what did they do and what were the good attributes of it and what were the bad attributes of it?
Yeah.
And I want to keep those attributes alive.
Yes. And
But
then add
now,
our own as well.
yeah, yeah,
Like
that's a good point.
our own learning stuff. I mean, I feel like you and I have like,
Yeah,
especially with running meets and stuff recently, we've had a lot of meetings with
yeah,
federation changes and stuff like that.
true.
And we're trying to do the best we can
Yeah,
and creating a team environment like within the state.
yeah,
And me and you are, we don't do it for money. We do it because we love the sport.
yeah, that's true.
And we do it because we want to help people like compete and get the like same good that we got out of
Yeah,
it.
and the other part of that sort of like timeline of changes from getting into it to where we're at now. Now it's shifting over a little bit to I want to have a lot of those attributes that I think needed to stay with powerlifting.
Yes.
But now I'm starting to see younger people come in, whether it's like the trainers here or whether it's members joining or like clients of ours or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm switching over a little bit to I want them to sort of do what we're doing in their own way
Yeah.
without losing track of what this really is.
Yeah, which is great. And I like that you say do it in their own way because you know what? Everyone has to do it in their own way at
Yep.
some point.
Yep.
That's what makes people unique. And
Yep.
that's like what's going to make you stand out as a coach or an
Yeah.
athlete is you doing it your own way.
Yep.
Like my way was, being ritual and being a hardcore
Yeah, yeah.
boy.
Yeah.
Yours too, that's the Rockwell way.
Yep.
And
That's
I think
true.
like, I'm not going to like be shy saying this, but like we have made a loud noise in the powerlifting world in Chicago.
Yep.
And people know about us around the world. and I'm proud of it.
Yeah,
And,
me too.
you know, you should be proud of it too. Like
Yeah,
it's
thanks, man.
great, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's been a major change, for everyone, whether you're in here,
Yeah.
whether you were in here,
Yeah.
there's no denying that.
No, it's great.
Uh,
It's home, you know?
yeah,
I love it.
you were talking about Miles and Nick,
Yeah.
and there was something that I was thinking about in regards to those guys, and so Nick was pretty heavily involved in sort of athletic strength training
Yes.
prior to being here.
Yeah, he was a collegiate. I think he was coaching a few college
I
teams.
think I want to say at UIC, he was involved with
Yeah, he
UIC
was.
most recently
Yeah, he
before
was.
here. And then he's, even currently very deeply involved in conjugate tactical.
Yeah.
So he has this influence from conjugate tactical, right?
Yeah.
And then Miles, like you mentioned, is in med school. Like
Yeah.
he is going to become a doctor
Yeah.
in the near future,
Yeah, he
right?
just got his PhD and now he has like 3 more years of med school and then he will be a doctor.
Yep. And then, we have you, which we've already talked about your whole background,
Yeah.
right? The interesting thing about the way that you guys train is I know that you guys take turns in writing the waves
Yes.
of your programs, right? And
Yes.
I don't really know how it actually changes over, but I know that at some junction, Miles will be writing a program, Nick will be writing a program. Right now, I think you wrote this
I'm
current one,
writing,
right?
yeah. Well, Miles is supposed to, but Miles is starting his rounds in MD,
Yeah.
so he asked me to do this round.
So what are the major differences that you notice when each person writes a wave? Because technically, you guys are doing conjugate each wave, right?
yeah.
So what do you notice is different? And I have some of my own answers for this because I've seen it, but you're the person actually doing it every day, every week.
Yeah. So
So what are the major
why don't you
differences?
tell me what your experience watching it is,
Sure, yeah. I'll see if it's accurate or not.
and then I'll
Because I'm only watching this like training clients and lifting and just
yeah,
walking by for 30 seconds.
and then I'll touch on what you asked. Yeah.
So the first thing that comes to mind with Nick is the athleticism aspect
Yes.
to it. And then also the intensity in the things that are all combined together,
Yes.
whether you like it or not, or whether you're comfortable with it, or whether, what it's gonna do. I'm not saying like, recovery wise or strength wise, but it just seems like he's gonna put a lot more in there than you normally would choose to do.
Yeah.
But mostly the athleticism, like seeing you guys do box jumps,
Yeah.
seeing you guys warm up on the turf, and you guys warm up the way that it looks like someone who would play basketball would warm
Yeah.
up before you guys lift. Things like that. That's probably the biggest contrast that I would see.
Yeah.
You can tell me, what I'm missing with him.
What the thing with Nick is, and I'll just touch base, then you could talk about
Yeah,
what
sure.
else you see.
Yeah, sure.
So Nick, at first I was really anti all this stuff,
Mhm.
and my body's feeling a lot better doing more like, plyometric athletic warm-ups, box jumps and stuff like that. And I trusted it. And now I put it in our program as well.
Yeah.
Like the box jumps. And I try to keep all kinds of like variables of training,
Yeah.
like there's a strength variable, there's a speed variable, and there's like a plyometric speed going the same.
Yep.
But like if we keep that together, I feel like I'm just more well-rounded. And that's
can see
like,
that.
I could breathe better.
Mhm.
Like I just feel better. My joints don't hurt as
I noticed that
bad.
with jujitsu. Like before I did jujitsu as much as I did,
Yeah.
I was afraid to just move in weird ways.
Yeah.
'cause of
And then once
lifting.
you do it, I think you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not dying.
Yeah. I think it's a
So
healthy thing. You don't want to lose that.
no, it is. And I'm 44. So
Most
like
people lose it.
yeah, and like that was a big convincing. Like
Yeah.
I would always be like, I can't do this because I'm old, but
Well,
like
kudos to Nick for like not giving a shit.
no, and he pushes me the way I need to be pushed.
Yeah.
Which is good. The one other thing that Nick does is he's very strict to the West Side Barbell
Yeah.
method.
Mhm.
He's strict to the conjugate method.
Mhm.
Everything is by book. It's a conjugate method.
Mhm. What do you mean by that exactly? Like if you can give us an
So
example
we
or
we
just
run a dynamic effort and a max effort day. Upper, lower. We start with max effort lower, then do max effort upper. So we're max efforting a bench press every week,
Mhm.
and then we're dynamic efforting a bench press movement or pushing movement every week.
every week. Yep. Makes sense.
So for the lower body movements, we're max efforting either a squat or deadlift variation. per week.
But
And
you're
we're
not max
alternating.
efforting
We're
both in a week. It's
we're
just
not, no.
alternate. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're conjugating those every 2
Hmm.
weeks. And then what we're doing with the dynamic effort is we're doing a deadlift and a squat every week with dynamic movement,
Hmm.
which is
I like
speed.
that.
Yep.
That's cool.
Um, and that's like the majority of it. And then he puts in a lot of accessories based on like what we
Weaknesses.
need. Yes, weaknesses for me,
Yeah.
weaknesses for him. Miles doesn't really have any weaknesses, sadly.
That
But
dude is
like
just straight up
he's
specimen.
just a
Like,
beast, dude. It's like he could just like he's going through all his shit. And he just benched like 435 pounds the other day, and his like 100 max is like 457 pounds. Just like out of the gun, just came and just did it. And I'm just like, I don't get it, man.
and he probably got off the bench and was like,
Yeah, he did.
not like,
You saw the video
yeah,
of the
not like
axle
too
bar
fired
bench.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like Miles is just he's just good at what he
Yeah. Yeah.
does.
Yeah. I love it.
I mean, talk about an easy athlete to coach. He was so easy to coach as an
Yeah.
athlete. He just did everything I said with no question.
Can I
Took
give
care
you?
of himself.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, he just took care of himself. He slept, he ate right. He just did everything the right way.
Yeah. He seems like he's pretty just on his shit. Like he
He
doesn't
is,
really
yeah.
have much highs and lows as far as like anything really. He
I mean,
seems
that's a
pretty,
good thing though.
yeah,
Like no chaos is
yeah,
good, right?
yeah, agreed.
You know?
So my guess for Miles, and I don't even know if this is anywhere spot on, but my guess for him would be is that he would try to have a lot of elements of um, linear progression or traditional barbell training involved or in conjunction with conjugate. Is
Yes.
that true, or is
Yes,
is
it
that
is.
super off?
Yes. His variations and variables and things aren't as
Be like
extreme.
dumbbell bench rather than chains, bands, and
Yeah.
blocks.
Yeah. And he'll do it. Like he's getting better at
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
think like even like me learning how to like program conjugate,
Yeah,
it took me a while to be able to trust myself or trust the system.
yeah.
To just start adding tons of variables to
Mhm.
things and
Yeah.
then like trusting the process. And you know, like
Yeah,
the process works and it's like I've learned it and it works really well for me. Like
yeah,
I think 2 weeks ago I squatted in briefs. I squatted like 520 with like 180 pounds of chains
yeah,
for a single.
yeah, yeah,
And that's the most I've squatted in like over a year.
yeah,
I mean, I didn't even squat that much at my meet last year,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is crazy.
Yep.
And then I benched like 375 to a 2 board for a double. And then I pulled 601 last week.
Yeah.
And I haven't pulled over 6 in like a year.
Yeah. I think part of it's because you're not over focusing and over concentrating on getting stronger at all costs, no matter what, as soon as possible.
That's a 50% or more part of it.
Yep.
You know, and then the
Yep.
conjugation of the program where I'm training to a max effort status, but
Yep.
not completely killing myself.
Yeah, yeah,
And then conjugating it is helping my recovery so much.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And, you know, I'm very good with my food too. Like Monday
Yeah.
through Friday, I'm like tracking macros and
yeah.
I try to sleep as good as I can, but recently I've been like not sleeping well because I've had a lot going on. So
Yeah. Oh, it's tough. I mean, when the candle's burning at both ends. As far as Miles goes, the reason I was kind of guessing that somewhat from what I've seen you guys lift when he's running the program, but also I just would assume because he's such a tank and his body's so consistent, I wouldn't see a need from him to overdo it on the conjugate side. He's obviously training conjugate with you guys because he's
Yeah.
doing it every week, but I would see his influence from being like, I can train with a straight bar or minor variations pretty regularly and recover from it. So what's cool about that, and you can let me know if you agree, because maybe you don't. But what's cool about that is it seems like he would keep some of those tougher elements involved in the programming where, you know how sometimes people will use conjugate to run from tough things.
Yes.
As far as like the straight bar or
Yeah.
full range of motion, this or that, right?
Yeah.
There's been people that I've literally seen only deadlift off of a 5-inch block for like years on end.
Yeah.
Because
That's
of that
just,
shit.
yeah. I
And
see what you're saying.
that's like the opposite of conjugate. That's
Yeah.
it ruins the whole idea of what conjugate is. So people like Miles being around where it's like, hey man, I want to have a lot of that sort of linear progression, the traditional barbell training involved in conjugate.
He likes to
Doesn't
lean
let you
into
get
the
too far
hard.
away from that shit,
Yeah, he likes to lean into the hard.
Yeah.
And he likes to push himself, and he's like, you're right about that. He
Mhm.
does lean into like the standard movements, 1 rep max stuff,
Yeah,
just pushing.
Yeah.
The other thing is he does follow the program. He does follow the blueprint like to a
Yeah.
T.
Yeah.
Which is good,
Yeah.
but like I conjugate things a
Yeah.
little bit different.
Yeah. How do you do it? Because we talked about those guys, but you're
So
obviously
I
big
do
part of it, so-
everything the same way, except on the max effort lower days,
Mhm.
I'll do So say squat is our max effort.
Mm,
I'll do a deadlift variation as like a back off.
gotcha.
And then that same week for the dynamic effort,
Mhm,
the deadlift will be the dynamic movement with
mhm.
a squat back off.
Yeah.
So I'm squatting and deadlifting 2 times a week when I'm doing it, which
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
might be a little more,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's a back off
Yeah,
with like a 70%,
totally.
60%.
When I'm in my prime, when I'm healthy, that's closer to how I train for
I
the
mean, it
most
makes you
part.
feel better, like you
Yeah.
don't feel as like beat up from the movement.
I remember talking to Becca about it like probably 2 years ago, I guess. No, probably a year and a half ago at this point, something like that. But I was talking to her about how I had some like MCL issues on my left side, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of it was to do with squatting. And her and I were talking about frequency for squatting. So as soon as I started squatting twice a week, it started to dissipate a little bit
Yeah.
because I was in that movement every 48 hours or
Yeah.
72 hours. And then once I learned to use it as back offs with different variations, because at first I was overdoing it a little bit where I'd go like heavy, heavy,
Yeah.
just like fell out of his ego. But when I started using the variations or more dynamic for the second day of squatting, that was like on my deadlift day,
Yeah.
that's when my knee got the healthiest.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the healthiest I've ever been doing
So
it
I
this way.
definitely
So
like that. And I think there's also a confidence aspect of doing
yeah.
those lifts all the time, even if they're not heavy. So let's say you have to pull 500 pounds on Monday, right?
For max effort. Yes.
But let's say that on Friday, you pull 315 pounds and you do 135, 225, 315 in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Your likelihood of hitting 500 better with better mechanics and also your confidence goes way, way up because you
Yes.
just did it, but you didn't exhaust yourself and there's nothing to recover from.
Well, and your body remembers the movement more, the
Yep.
more it's programmed.
Mhm.
So like the longer you wait to do it,
Yep.
the more sore you're gonna get because your
Yep.
body's gonna like,
Yep.
not be used to the movement.
100%.
And like honestly, I hate being sore, as we've talked about.
You?
Yeah.
That's
I hate
wild,
being
man.
sore because it sucks.
I love being sore.
Mhm.
No, I'm just fucking with you.
It goes back to our whole joke about being sore.
You and I went to a show the other day. We went and saw Glassjaw, and I had to leave early because I worked early. But you stayed and watched Poison the Well,
Yeah.
and I got there late, but you saw Better Lovers and Teenage Wrist, right?
Yeah. It was a great show.
So oh, go ahead,
No,
sorry.
you can finish.
No, I just want to talk to you about Glassjaw because I
Oh
I
man.
lost my mind watching them, and you've been trying to get me into them for like our whole friendship, and I've never fought it. I just never like allowed it to fully happen.
Yeah.
And then I went to that show, and I
20
felt
years later.
so dumb watching them. I just had my jaw open, or at one point I was like bobbing my head, and I closed my eyes, and I was just headbanging with my eyes closed
Yeah.
for like a whole song. Which
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really do that, and I think that's when it hit me, and I was like, "Damn, this is a special band."
Dude, they're like musicians. Like all 4 of them are just
I
really
felt like I
good
was watching a
musicians.
jazz concert.
I mean, all their influences is like jazz, like the bass
Hey, that's
player,
wild.
the guitar player with like a lot of whammy pedal and filters on the guitar. It's just like,
Yeah,
and like it never dawned on me how good they are until I seen them like live for the first time.
yeah,
And the singer, Daryl Palumbo, like mad props to him, he's like a straight edge,
yeah.
like vegetarian dude, vegan dude. He's been his whole life. And
Uh-huh.
like he just
I
knows
didn't know
how
that dude was straight edge.
yeah.
Damn, they're way cooler now.
Yeah. So you know all the X's?
I didn't realize.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
Huh.
So like and they're from New York, and I think he's just like a different brand of like artist.
Mhm.
He just knows what he's doing, and he could sing like live. And I remember the first time I saw them live, I was just like, oh yeah, this band is like, and like
Yeah.
their records are good and they're recorded well, but once you see it live, you're just like, what the
It's
fuck?
pretty strange that a band can record good records, and then when they play live, it sounds better than the record.
Yeah.
It's generally not the case. Even some of my favorite bands.
Yeah, I mean,
know?
honestly, Poison the Well did not sound good on,
Yeah, I was shocked, and I felt so bad about leaving. And then when you
which
told me they were,
sucks, but
when
like
you
it
told me
is
it wasn't what you
is.
thought it was going to be, I was like, well, that's good. I went home and slept because I barely made it here for my 5 a.m. I like walked in like 5 minutes late.
Yeah, that's funny.
But no, back to Glassjaw. I mean, as far as like them playing live, I mean, I didn't know who to look at, and usually when I watch a band play, I'll either watch one of the band members or another one based on who's the best
Yeah.
or who really like performs or just like is interesting. But I kept just going between the 4 of them, and I just didn't really know who to watch. I was so impressed.
They're magnificent musicians.
I mean, and
And,
especially
you
the
know,
guitarist.
me and you are musicians, or we have been in the past. So, you know, when we see that, we
Yeah.
know it.
Yeah.
You know, and people, anyone with like a inkling or the talent for
Yeah.
music that understands it.
Well, I know how hard it is to make mediocre music. You know, like I'm not saying that, I wasn't proud of the bands
No,
that I
I
was in
get
my
it.
life, but we
Yeah.
weren't anything incredible. And it was so fucking hard just to put out like decent material that your peers respected.
I
So
mean,
when
but the
someone can,
band Glassjaw, like how they blend all the jazz
yeah,
into like hardcore, into
yeah,
like emo is
yeah,
just very just different.
yeah. And they're a guitarist. I know they've been a band for a long time. And I also know, and I would assume that that guy's not 20 years old.
No,
But
they're like older than us.
But when he plays, he literally looks like he picked his guitar up like 5 years ago, and he's just as excited about playing it
Yeah, he does look
now
excited.
as, when he started. And I mean, it's hard to do that. I watch, especially now that we're a little older,
Yeah,
we see, just like Boys in the Well, we see a lot of bands that we watched when we were younger,
yeah,
and you see how they age. Some of them age really well as far as performance goes,
yeah,
and some of them don't.
yeah,
I saw 18 Visions in New Jersey.
yeah,
They didn't age. They like ripped everyone's faces off.
yeah,
They were super into it.
yeah,
Like it was incredible. Same thing with Walls of Jericho.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, Walls of Jericho, when I saw them at that same show, played better than when I saw them 15 to 20 years ago.
I mean, side note, the singer of Walls of Jericho is a conjugate powerlifter.
That's true.
So like,
That's true.
just to give you guys a
Kind of
sense
goes
of
back
like,
to the full circle.
yes,
thing.
just to give you a sense of
But yeah, and so when Poison the Well played, what was like? Was it just a little off, or
it's
what
just
was
the
it?
like,
I mean,
yeah, they
I
just
love that band.
you know, the energy wasn't there. Like the singer, like, and no shade, but like I'm just gonna be honest from my experience.
Yeah,
Like the band was great, they sounded great. The
yeah,
singer did not sound great.
yeah,
He just can't do what he did on the albums, and he
yeah.
can't do what he did in the past.
Yeah.
And
I wonder if it's just like a break. Like,
I think it's just like, you know, they've been touring and they're just playing so much.
that's true.
You know, I saw them 3 times last year.
Was
I
it
saw them.
better when you saw them last year?
Yeah, when I saw them at Cobra Lounge, they were better, and then when I saw them at Furnace Fest, they were better.
Yeah, I
And
wonder if it's just
then
the size of the venue too. You know,
no, because I mean, look at Glassjaw and like look at like the other bands I've seen there. I've seen Knocked Loose there, and like
that's a good point.
they've been like, and they're way more like all over the place with the vocals and everything.
Good point. I just feel like Knocked Loose is such a full, large band. You know, they
They
take
are
up so
now,
much.
yeah.
Like, I mean, just like even like the way they sound,
Yeah,
they just take up so much space.
yeah,
Like even when we saw them at Salt Shed a while ago,
yeah,
like it was almost too much for my ears.
yeah. They're very loud sound.
And also a really interesting thing about them is that if it wasn't for you, TJ, Pat, I probably wouldn't be into that band.
I mean, they're also another straight edge band, which is
That's true. And what's funny is that I've slowly gotten into that band, probably mostly because you guys have been like, hey, you're going to go to the show? You should go to the show.
yeah,
And it's funny because I don't thoroughly enjoy them still. Like when I listen to them on my own, I usually don't listen to more than 1 or 2 songs.
yeah.
But over time, it's starting to add up and become more. And I've never liked a band like that before,
Excuse me.
where I've liked seeing them at the show because my friends are having a good time.
Yeah.
And then I slowly but surely start liking their music.
Yeah,
That's the first band that's ever happened for me.
that's good.
Every other band, I either immediately like them or I don't, or I learn to like them on my own.
I mean, I have a lot of bands that I've learned to like over time.
Anything that comes to mind? Or
Yeah,
anything?
Integrity.
Integrity?
Yeah, remember I never used to like them.
Why?
I don't know, I just didn't, and then over time, I just started liking them a lot.
Yeah,
There's
I
a
get-
lot of bands, like,
Yeah.
you probably remember more than I, because of the amounts of times where I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, remember I used to hate this band, and now I like them?"
Yeah, that's true. The
I mean-
integrity thing's funny because I feel like it gets played here so often
I know.
that
I just started getting into it more and more
I feel like
and
it's
more.
hard to kind of ignore. I feel like even probably secretly Pat probably likes integrity
Yeah.
and secretly TJ.
They would
might-
never admit it, though.
That's like old guy hardcore shit.
Yeah. Which we're going to see them in New York, which is going to be awesome.
That's true. Yeah, we're gonna see Integrity, Judge, Earth Crisis.
That's going to be a sick show.
I think there's like a small crew of people from the gym that are gonna roll out there.
Yeah, I think there's a bigger than Small Crew.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of people from Chicago going.
And that Russ dude that we met at
Is he gonna go?
Gus Clash is
I
gonna
like
go.
that guy.
Speaking of, we'll probably wrap this up pretty soon, but I want to talk about the Ghost Clash
Oh yeah, tell me how it was.
recently because that was
I
sick.
forgot we didn't really get a chance to talk about it. Last year we were all there
Yeah.
because TJ was competing and we had a good time. This
Mhm.
year, Brian, Lawrence had a client, his client Brian was competing, so he was
Yeah.
there. So tell us about it.
Well, so last year I had such a good time that I wanted to go down again, and I'm going to try to go down as often as possible. I don't know if I'm going to go down every year, but I'd
That's
like to
fair.
try to make it a regular thing. And Brian and I were looking for a meet for him, and the meets that we had here at the gym, they didn't really conveniently work out with his travel schedule, the holidays, things like that.
Okay,
And the way we were peaking him wasn't really lining up with the meets that were around here either,
got it.
you know? And so we were like, well, we'll just sign you up for one of the Rockwell ones and just force it. It's not really great timing. We'll just do it.
Yeah,
And then the Ghost Clash got brought up. I think Brian had brought it up to me just in passing. I don't even think he was asking like, hey, let's do it. He was just like, oh, that's cool. That meet's going on or something like that. And so I got a hold of Alex, told Alex that we wanted to come down, and Alex is nice enough to put Brian on the meet
yeah,
and got a chance to go down there, hang out, have a good time, see Alex a little bit. It was
yeah,
awesome. Um, and the nice thing about Brian is that he's so easygoing and he's so relaxed and just positive that
yeah.
the minute that we both met up, I got in before him, but when he came in the next day, we were like responsible. We didn't stay up late. We didn't like eat bad food or anything like that, but we just kind of hung out. Like we went to the beach. We
That's
just went to
nice.
all these like sick restaurants.
That's
We
cool.
rented I rented this like dumbass Camaro and we just fucking beat the shit
Was
out
it
of it.
fast?
I mean, it was not the fastest car I ever drove, but I definitely drove it recklessly.
Why didn't you get a
Uh,
Porsche?
it was too much. Like I already paid too much money to rent this dumb Camaro, and it was just obnoxious to rent a night
Did you
with it.
use
So
what's that app called?
Turo,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's funny.
I almost did though, but I'm trying to be semi-reasonable with
No,
my money.
that's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, and then we got coffee, we got acai. We were just like it was almost felt like we were on vacation.
I mean, you kind of were.
But what's funny is that before the meet, I was kind of worried because I was like, damn, dude, I feel like we hung out a little too hard, meaning like I feel like Brian's relaxed. I don't know if he's like that focused, not as for him personally, but just like how the weekend went.
Yeah.
And then when we got to the meet, it actually worked out perfectly because
Good.
he had no nerves.
That's good.
Like I wasn't stressed out. And actually, Katie flew down literally just for a day, just to be there at the meet with us.
That's nice.
So Katie flew in like at noon, was at the meet with us all day, and left with us to go back to Chicago at 11 p.m.,
That's nice.
which is pretty sick.
That's good.
But yeah, he did really, really well. He squatted really well. He had I think he hit
Didn't you have some PRs?
yeah, he had a small meet PR because he had a depth issue um, in the beginning of the meet, and basically had to kind of retake his first weight, and
Yeah.
we made do, we made a big jump on his third, but it was fine.
Yeah. I
But he
mean,
hit a 5-pound PR.
that happens.
He hit a 15-pound PR on his bench,
Oh, wow,
which was
that's good.
fantastic. That
Yeah,
was
that's
probably
really
one of
good.
the best lifts of his day because it was such
Ooh,
an
excuse
earned
me.
third attempt.
Yeah, that's great.
That was fantastic.
Bench is hard.
And then he actually tore a callus on his second attempt deadlift.
Oh, that sucks.
We taped his hand up, and I put so much chalk on his hands that there was chalk like on the back of his hands and probably halfway up his forearms.
That's funny.
And then I just kept telling him, I was just like trying to like psychologically get in his head. And I was like, dude, this amount of chalk is going to help you hold on to that bar. You're not going to drop it. You're not going to hurt your hand. I don't know if all that was true, but
Did he drop it?
no.
Oh, good.
So
That's sick.
yeah,
Maybe he just believed you.
yeah, you know how it goes. I mean, sometimes you just got to kind of go off the cuff and tell your lifter what they need to hear.
I mean, also, yeah, I've done that a lot.
And he had a meet PR on his deadlift, not at all time, but that's pretty good for a ripped callus.
Yes, that's really good. Yeah.
And I was just really proud of him because I feel like he represented the gym well. There was a little bit of adversity in his meet, and he just kind of rolled with the punches. And it was a really good learning experience for him and I, from a coach to lifter perspective, but also as friends.
That's
like
good.
the amount of shit that we figured out without talking about it that weekend was immense for me and Brian.
That's good. Yeah.
But it was a blast, man. And like, shout out to Alex Usler for running an awesome meet.
Every year
shout
he
out to
does.
Ghost.
Yeah.
And then like his whole crew down there, his whole gym, man. Like the Miami like powerlifting sort of like vibe down there is it's totally its own thing. It's very different from the Midwest
Yeah,
for
but I like
obvious
it.
reasons,
I like it.
but it's rad. And I feel like the enjoyment that people get out of powerlifting down there is something that a lot of other places could kind of like take away from a little bit,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like we like to have a good time here. We like to party. We like to joke around. We like to be ridiculous, you
Yeah.
know? And I feel like there's some parallels there between
I mean,
Miami and
if you
Chicago.
look at things like, you know, Alex is a big part of the Miami scene in powerlifting. Alex is a hardcore boy too,
That's true.
you know.
Yep.
He's a straight edger, hardcore from a kid.
That's true.
So
And
there's all some ties somewhere.
totally. And then that dude, you know, is also, worked his ass off to get involved in
Yeah,
powerlifting
he is.
and certain gyms that he kind of came up in. And the thing with Ghost, that whole story, we can probably save that for another podcast,
I
but
mean,
how he got,
you could even get him on the podcast, bro.
yeah, how he got involved with Ghost and then what he did with the Ghost brand and his gym and the apparel. It's kind of like another one of our little stories all over again. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you asked him to be on the podcast, he would gladly be because he runs the Ghost podcast.
Yeah.
And he's really good at it. So I think it would be interesting. I mean, I would watch you two talking.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I think, you know, maybe we'll do it with him together.
Yeah, that would be great.
We did the one with the WRPF a while ago. So
Oh, yeah, that was good. I forgot.
probably just have version 2 of that.
Yeah, that would be great. I forgot about that.
Well, cool, man. I think we'll probably wrap up here. I know you got to train a client, and Shara is probably going to kill me if we don't stop soon. So
Thanks,
we'll
Shara.
probably call it there. But yeah, we'll definitely do it again soon.
All right, sweet. Thank you, everybody.
That's it, Shar.